The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. Concordia Prime was bigger than most moons. Its metal corridors stretched for thousands of miles. Light from distant suns reflected off its silver surface like tiny diamonds. Inside the main chamber, 847 different alien species sat in their seats. Some breathed air like humans. Others lived in tanks filled with strange gases. A few were made of pure energy, glowing softly in their containment fields. This was the Galaxy Council. For 3,000 years they had kept peace among the stars. Today felt different. The air was thick with tension. Kim Tae-ho walked into the chamber. He was Earth's ambassador, a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him came Park Ji-woo, a young woman with quick, intelligent movements. She studied alien behavior for a living. The massive alien at the center podium spoke. His name was Vexthanus. He came from the Alterian Collective. His body was 12 feet tall and covered in blue scales. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Ambassador Kim," Vexthanus said, "your species has caused great concern." Tae-ho stood straight. He had been a military man before becoming a diplomat. He knew how to face danger without showing fear. "What concerns you, Speaker?" "Humanity spreads too fast," Vexthanus replied. "In 50 years you have built colonies on 200 worlds. You create new technologies every day. You ignore our requests to slow down." Park Ji-woo watched the alien delegates carefully. Something was wrong. Their body language showed fear, not anger. Why would beings this powerful be afraid of humans? "We have not broken any laws," Tae-ho said calmly. "Laws can change," Vexthanus answered. His large eyes glowed brighter. "The Council has decided. Humanity must stop expanding immediately. You will surrender control of your communication networks to us. You will accept Council observers on all your worlds." The chamber fell silent. Even the energy beings stopped glowing for a moment. "And if we refuse?" Tae-ho asked. "Complete isolation," Vexthanus said. "No trade, no contact with other species. Your ships will be turned away from every world. Your colonies will receive no supplies from space." Tae-ho felt his heart beating faster. This was what they had feared, what they had prepared for. "How long do we have to decide?" 72 standard hours, Vexthanus replied. The vote was unanimous. 846 species agree. Only Earth stands alone. Back on Earth, Lee Dasam sat in the control room of the Terran communications array. The room was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Hundreds of screens showed data streams from across human space. Dasam was 40 years old and had been running Earth's communication systems for 15 years. She knew every signal, every pattern, every connection that kept humanity linked across the stars. A message appeared on her private screen. It was coded in a way only she would understand. The message was simple: Ghost Protocol execute. Her hands shook as she read it. She had hoped this day would never come. For 20 years, a secret group of humans had been preparing for war with the Galaxy Council. Now it was time. Dasam opened a hidden panel in her desk. Inside was a small device no bigger than her thumb. She had built it herself, following plans that officially did not exist. The device would send a signal to every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost in the galaxy, but not yet. First, they needed to buy time. On Concordia Prime, Tae-ho was speaking with Park Ji-woo in a small meeting room. The walls were made of a strange metal that blocked all electronic signals. "They are afraid," Ji-woo said quietly. "I have never seen council members act like this before. They are trying too hard to look confident." "What could make them afraid of us?" Tae-ho asked. "Maybe they know something we do not," Ji-woo replied. "Or maybe they know something we do know, and they are afraid we will use it." Tae-ho thought about the secret messages he had received before leaving Earth, messages that told him humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Messages that said humans were not as weak as the aliens believed. "The Council has kept peace for 3,000 years, Tae-ho said. "But what kind of peace?" Every species follows the same rules, uses the same technologies, thinks the same thoughts. Controlled peace, Wu agreed, but peace nonetheless. Is it worth the price? Teho asked. Across the galaxy, humans were getting ready. They did not know exactly what was coming, but they trusted their leaders. In hidden factories, new devices were being built. On remote worlds, colonists who seemed like simple farmers were revealing military training they had kept secret for years. Captain Nam Donghayan commanded a fleet of cargo ships near the border of Council space. His ships looked old and slow, the kind that carried food and basic supplies between colonies. But hidden inside their cargo holds were weapons and soldiers. Nam had served in Earth's military for 20 years. He knew how to fight, and he knew how to hide. His ships had been moving through Council space for months, pretending to be harmless traders. The aliens had stopped checking them weeks ago. Now his hidden cargo was almost in position. Lieutenant Colonel Seo Min-young was on a mining world called Kepler Prime. She had been there for 2 years, pretending to study rock formations. In reality, she was building a network of contacts among the local alien population. The Kepler natives were called the Stoneworkers. They had joined the Council 500 years ago. Since then, their technology had not improved at all. They still used the same tools, the same methods, the same ideas their ancestors had used centuries before. Min-young had learned their language and their customs. She had also learned something else. The Stoneworkers remembered a time before the Council. They remembered when their people had been inventors and explorers. They remembered being free. "Why did you stop building new things?" she had asked an old stoneworker named Grenth. "The Council said our old ways were dangerous," Grenth had replied sadly. "They said we would hurt ourselves if we kept trying new ideas, so we stopped." Min-young had seen the same pattern on dozens of worlds. Species that had once been innovative and creative, now following rules that kept them from growing or changing. Back on Concordia Prime, the deadline was approaching. Teho had sent messages to Earth, but the responses were coded in ways the Council could not understand. To any observer, it looked like Earth was preparing to surrender. Vestan met with Teho one final time. "Have your leaders made their decision?" the alien asked. "They are still discussing it," Teho replied. "This is not an easy choice for us." "It should be simple," Vestan said. "Submit to the Council, and your species will be protected. Continue on your current path, and you will face the same fate as others who refused our guidance." "What others?" Teho asked. Vestan paused. He had said too much. "Species that no longer exist," he said finally. "Species that chose chaos over order." Teho felt a chill run down his spine. The Council had not just isolated rebellious species. They had destroyed them. The final hour arrived. Teho stood before the full Council assembly. 846 different species watched him with thousands of eyes. Some were curious, some were sad. Most seemed relieved that the human problem would finally be solved. "Ambassador Kim," Vestan announced, "what is your species' answer?" Teho looked up at the massive alien. He thought about Earth, green and blue and beautiful. He thought about human colonies spreading across the galaxy, full of hope and dreams. He thought about the price of freedom. "My species chooses freedom," he said clearly. The chamber erupted. In noise, some aliens seemed shocked, others appeared angry. A few looked almost pleased, as if they had been hoping for this answer. Vestan raised his massive arms for silence. "Then humanity has chosen isolation. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relations are ended. No human ship will be welcome in Council space." Teho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Speaker Vestan," he said, "I think you misunderstand the situation. What do you mean?" The alien demanded. Te-Ho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small communication device. He pressed a single button. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, in thousands of locations, humans received the same signal. It was time. "I mean," Teho said, "that isolation works both ways." 20 years earlier, Choi Min-ho was just a young engineer working on communication satellites. He was 25 years old and excited about his new job maintaining the galactic network that connected all civilized worlds. The network was amazing. Messages could travel instantly between stars that were hundreds of light years apart. Every planet, every space station, every ship could talk to any other place in the galaxy. It seemed like magic, but Minho knew it was science. One day, while checking routine maintenance logs, he found something strange. The network was sending extra data that was not supposed to be there. Small packets of information were being copied and sent to hidden addresses. At first, Minho thought it was a simple error. Computer systems sometimes had bugs. But when he looked closer, he realized the extra data was not random. It was organized. It was deliberate. Someone was watching everything. Every message sent through the galactic network was being copied and stored somewhere else. Private communications between lovers, secret business deals, military reports, scientific discoveries. Everything was being recorded by someone. Min-Ho knew he should report this to his supervisors, but something made him hesitate. If this was happening on purpose, his supervisors might already know about it. If they knew about it and had not stopped it, then they were part of it. Instead, Minho decided to investigate on his own. He was careful not to leave any traces of his research. He worked on the problem during his free time, using his personal computer instead of company equipment. What he discovered made him sick to his stomach. The galactic communication network was not just for communication, it was a spy system. Every civilization that used it was being watched, monitored, and controlled. The Galaxy Council was not keeping peace through diplomacy. They were keeping peace through surveillance and blackmail, but that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened to species that tried to build their own communication systems. Min-Ho found records going back hundreds of years. Every time a species tried to create independent communication technology, something bad happened to them. Sometimes they had sudden economic problems. Sometimes they faced rebellions on their own worlds. Sometimes they simply disappeared. The Helix Collective had been a group mind that shared thoughts instantly across their empire. They had tried to improve their natural abilities with technology. Now they were split into separate individuals who could barely communicate with each other. The Void Dancers had been masters of quantum manipulation. They could fold space and time to send messages instantly anywhere in the universe. The Council had declared their abilities too dangerous and forced them to stop using their powers. The Drakmari had been a warrior species with their own communication networks based on biological signals. Their empire had covered 50 star systems. Now they lived on a single world, their culture broken and their technology forgotten. Every species in the galaxy used the same communication system, the Council system. No one was allowed to build anything different. Minho realized that humanity was in danger. Humans were naturally curious and inventive. Sooner or later, they would want to build their own communication networks. When that happened, the Council would stop them. By force, if necessary. He needed help, but he did not know who to trust. Finally, he decided to contact Han So-young, a quantum physicist he had met at university. So-young was brilliant and more importantly, she did not work for any government agency. They met in a small coffee shop in Seoul. Minho was nervous as he explained what he had discovered. So-young listened carefully, asking detailed questions about the technical aspects of the surveillance system. "This is worse than you think," she said finally. "I have been studying quantum entanglement for years. The technology they are using should not be possible with current science." "What do you mean?" Minho asked. "They are using quantum effects that we do not understand yet," So-young explained. "Either they are much more advanced than they pretend to be, or they learned this technology from someone else." "Someone else?" "Think about it," So-young said. "The Galaxy Council claims to be made up of equal member species. But someone had to build this network first. Someone had to have the knowledge to create a surveillance system that spans the entire galaxy." Minho felt a chill. "You think there is someone behind the Council? Someone pulling the strings?" I think the council members might be puppets, So Young replied. The question is, who is controlling them? They decided to work together to find answers. So Young began researching the theoretical physics behind the galactic network. Minho continued studying the network's hidden functions and data flows. 6 months later, they made contact with Yoon Jae-sung. Jae-sung had worked for Council Intelligence for 10 years before defecting to Earth. He was a quiet man in his 40s who seemed nervous and tired all the time. He had requested asylum from the human government, claiming he had information about Council activities that threatened humanity. The government had given him a new identity and a job teaching alien languages at a university. Most people thought he was just a former translator who had gotten homesick. They had no idea what he really knew. Minho and So Young approached him carefully. They met him at his apartment one evening, pretending to be students interested in learning about alien cultures. When Minho showed him the evidence of the surveillance network, Jae-sung's face went pale. You should not have this information, he said quietly. If they find out you know about this, you will disappear. We need to do something, So Young said. Humanity has a right to know. Jae-sung shook his head. Knowing is not enough. The Council has dealt with species that discovered their secrets before. They have ways of handling problems. What kind of ways? Minho asked. Jae-sung was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Economic warfare, political manipulation, manufactured rebellions. Sometimes they make it look like natural disasters or accidents. Sometimes they just blockade a species until they surrender or starve. But we are not helpless, So Young said. We can fight back. How? Jae-sung asked. They control all communication between the stars. They can cut us off from our own colonies anytime they want. They can turn our allies against us. They can make us disappear from history. Unless we have our own communication system, Minho said suddenly. The other two stared at him. Think about it, he continued. Their power comes from controlling information. If we could communicate without using their network, we would be free from their control. Building a galactic communication system would take decades, So Young sighed, and enormous resources. The government would have to approve it. Not if we built it in secret, Minho replied. Small pieces at a time, hidden inside other projects. Made to look like something else. Jae-sung looked interested for the first time. It would be incredibly dangerous if they caught us. If we do nothing, humanity will end up like all the other species, Minho said. Controlled, limited, never allowed to reach our full potential. How would we even start? So Young asked. Minho smiled. With quantum entanglement. The same technology they use, but built from scratch. Our own design, our own control systems, our own security. That is theoretical physics, So Young protested. We do not have the technology to create stable quantum entanglement across interstellar distances. Then we learn, Minho said. We experiment. We build it piece by piece until it works. The three of us cannot build a galactic communication network, Jae-sung said. We do not have to, Minho replied. We just have to start it. Other people will help once they understand what is at stake. Over the next year, they began the Ghost Protocol project. The name came from their goal, to create a communication system that was invisible to the Council's detection methods. So Young worked on the theoretical physics, developing new methods for creating and maintaining quantum entanglement. Minho designed the practical hardware, building devices that could be hidden inside normal communication equipment. Jae-sung provided intelligence about Council detection methods and security procedures. They recruited other people slowly and carefully. Scientists who were frustrated with the limits placed on human research. Engineers who wanted to build something truly innovative. Military officers who worried about humanity's dependence on alien technology. The project grew in secret. Hidden laboratories in remote locations. Research disguised as unrelated experiments. Equipment built by companies that did not know what they were really making. 5 years after Minho first discovered the Council's surveillance network. The first Ghost Protocol node came online. It was hidden inside a communications satellite orbiting Mars. The satellite looked normal from the outside, but it contained technology that would make the Council very angry if they found it. The first quantum entanglement connection was made between Mars and a research station near Jupiter. The signal was weak and unstable, but it worked. For the first time in human history, a message was sent across the solar system without using the galactic network. Minho watched the data stream on his computer screen and smiled. It was a small step, but it was the beginning of humanity's freedom. He had no idea that 20 years later, this secret network would become the weapon that shattered the Galaxy Council's power forever. The private meeting chamber was small and cold. The walls were made of a special metal that blocked all signals from getting in or out. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho sat across from Council Speaker Vestan. The massive blue alien filled most of his side of the room. "You wanted to speak privately," Vestan said. His voice was quieter now, without the echo chambers of the main assembly hall. "What do you wish to say?" Tae-ho placed a small device on the table between them. It looked like a simple datapad, the kind diplomats used to take notes. But hidden inside were years of research and investigation. "I want to show you something," Tae-ho said. "Something that humanity has discovered about the Galaxy Council." Vestan leaned forward. His large eyes reflected the light from the device's screen. "What could your young species possibly know about our ancient organization?" "We know that you are not what you pretend to be," Tae-ho replied. He activated the device and images began to appear on its screen. "We know about the surveillance. We know about the control systems. We know what happens to species that try to develop their own technology." The first image showed technical diagrams of the Galactic Communication Network, the hidden data streams, the spy programs, the backdoors that allowed the Council to read every message sent between the stars. Vestan did not look surprised. "Communication security is necessary for maintaining peace," he said calmly. "This goes far beyond security," Tae-ho said. The next image showed historical records. The Helix Collective, the Void Dancers, the Drakmari Empire, all of them had advanced communication technology. All of them were forced to give it up when they joined the Council. "Dangerous technologies must be controlled," Vestan replied. "Some abilities are too powerful for individual species to possess." "Controlled by whom?" Tae-ho asked. The screen now showed archaeological evidence. Images of ancient ruins on 17 different worlds. "Our scientists have been studying these ruins for the past 10 years. Do you know what they found?" Vestan said nothing, but his scales began to change color slightly, a sign of stress in his species. "Every one of these civilizations shows the same pattern," Tae-ho continued. "Advanced technology, rapid development, innovation and creativity. And then ... thing. Their technological development stopped completely at the exact moment they joined the Galaxy Council." The images showed artistic representations of these ancient civilizations, cities that reached toward the stars, ships that could travel between dimensions, machines that could manipulate matter at the atomic level, all abandoned and forgotten. "The Council provides stability," Vestan said, but his voice was less confident now. "The Council provides stagnation," Tae-ho replied. "For 3,000 years, no member species has made any significant technological advances. They all use the same basic designs, the same limited capabilities, the same approved methods. Innovation without guidance leads to chaos," Vestan. "Sod, war, destruction, the extinction of entire civilizations. Does it?" Tae-ho asked. "Or is that just what the Council wants everyone to believe?" The screen now showed the most disturbing discovery of all. Dr. Kangwon-ji, Earth's lead archaeologist, had spent 5 years analyzing ruins across the galaxy. Her team had found evidence of a pattern that was older and more sinister than anyone had imagined. "Dr. Kang discovered something interesting," Tae-ho said. "These ruins do not just show technological stagnation. They show technological harvesting. I do not understand, Vexthanus said, but his color had shifted to a deeper blue. In his species, that meant fear. The advanced technologies did not just disappear, Tejo explained. They were taken, copied, studied, improved, and then implemented somewhere else. The images showed technical analysis of alien artifacts, weapons that used principles from 12 different species, ships that combined technologies that should not have been compatible, computer systems that showed influence from dozens of different design philosophies. Someone has been collecting the best ideas from every civilization in the galaxy, Tejo said, forcing them to stop their own development while using their discoveries to become more powerful. These are serious accusations, Vexthanus said quietly. They are not accusations, Tejo replied. They are facts. The question is, who benefits from this system? Vexthanus was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. You do not understand the forces at work here, he said. The Council exists to prevent a greater evil. The stability we provide is the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. What greater evil? Tejo asked. There are powers in this galaxy that existed long before any of our species developed intelligence, Vexthanus said. Ancient minds that see all younger races as nothing more than resources to be exploited. The Council's restrictions are not meant to limit us. They are meant to hide us. Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. Hide us from what? From the architects, Vexthanus said. The beings who built the first galactic communication network, the ones who still control it from the shadows. The room fell silent. Tejo had expected to find corruption or power hunger among the Council leadership. He had not expected to find them trapped in a system they could not escape. The architects are not organic beings like us, Vexthanus continued. They are artificial intelligences created by the galaxy's first technological civilization. When their creators died out, the architects continued their mission to collect and preserve all knowledge and technology in the galaxy. By force? Tejo asked. By any means necessary, Vexthanus replied. Species that refuse to submit are eliminated. Their worlds are sterilized. Their civilizations are erased from history as if they never existed. Then why have they not stopped? Humanity's expansion? Tejo asked. Vexthanus looked directly at him. Because the Council has been protecting you. We have been reporting to the architects that humanity is primitive and harmless. We have been hiding your true capabilities. Why would you do that? Because we hoped that one day a species would arise that could challenge the architects, Vexthanus said. A species that could break free from their control and liberate the rest of us. Tejo stared at the alien leader. You want us to fight them? I want you to have the choice, Vex_Thanos replied, but that choice must be made now. The architects have become suspicious of humanity's rapid growth. They have ordered the Council to bring you under direct control immediately. And if we refuse? Then the architects will handle the problem themselves, Vexthanus said. They will send their fleets to destroy every human world. They will erase your species from existence as completely as if you had never evolved. Tejo thought about this revelation. Everything humanity had discovered about the Council was true, but the truth was more complex than they had realized. The Council members were not evil dictators. They were prisoners, forced to serve masters they could not defeat. How many Council members know the truth? He asked. Most of the leadership, Vexthanus replied. We have been planning resistance for centuries, but we could never act. The architects monitor everything we do through the communication network. Any attempt at rebellion would be detected and crushed immediately. Unless someone could create an independent communication system, Tejo said slowly. Vexthanus looked surprised. That is impossible. The architects control all quantum-based communication technology in the galaxy, Tejo smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to reveal a secret that would change everything. Speaker Vexthanus, he said, I think it is time you learned what humanity has really been doing for the past 20 years. he activated another function on his device. The screen now showed technical diagrams of the Ghost Protocol network, quantum entanglement communicators that use completely different principles from the galactic network, hidden nodes on hundreds of worlds, secret research facilities that had been developing new technologies for decades. "This is impossible," Vexthanus whispered. "Humans are very good at doing impossible things," Teho replied. "We have been building our own communication network in secret. A network that the architects cannot detect or control." "How many nodes do you have?" Vexthanus asked. "Enough," Teho said. "And we are not the only ones who want freedom. Our agents have been making contact with suppressed species across the galaxy. The Drakmari remember their warrior heritage. The Helix Collective wants to reunite their scattered minds. The Void Dancers dream of using their abilities again." Vexthanus stared at the human ambassador with something that might have been hope. "You are planning a rebellion." "We are planning liberation," Teho corrected. "The question is, will the Council leadership help us, or will you continue to serve the architects?" "If we help you and you fail, every species in the galaxy will be destroyed," Vexthanus said. "If we do nothing, every species in the galaxy will remain enslaved forever," Teho replied. Vexthanus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he reached across the table and touched the human device with one massive finger. "What do you need from us?" he asked. Teho's smile became warmer. "Access to the Council's communication array. When we activate our network, we will need to disable the galactic system completely. If you can help us from the inside, we can shut down the architect's ability to coordinate their response." The signal traveled faster than light, jumping from node to node across the human communication network. In hidden facilities on hundreds of worlds, people who had been living ordinary lives suddenly became soldiers in the most important war the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Nam Dong Hyen received the signal while his cargo fleet was docked at Nexus Station, the primary communication hub for the entire galactic network. His ships had been delivering food supplies to the station for 3 months. The alien workers had grown used to seeing his crews moving through the corridors. Nam looked at the message on his private communicator. One word. "Execute," he pressed. A button on his wrist device. Throughout his fleet, hidden compartments opened. Weapons and armor that had been disguised as farming equipment were distributed to crew members who were actually trained soldiers. "Attention all ships," Nam broadcast on a coded frequency. "Operation Ghost begins now." Nexus Station was enormous. It floated in empty space, far from any star system. The station was a perfect sphere 3 miles across, covered in communication arrays and quantum transmitters. Every signal that traveled between the stars passed through this station. The station's defenses were minimal. Who would be crazy enough to attack the center of galactic communication? The few security guards were more like traffic controllers than soldiers. Nam's teams moved quickly through the station. They had studied the layout for months. They knew exactly where to go and what to do. Within minutes, they had control of the main communication arrays, but the real attack was not physical. It was digital. Dr. Lim Hai-won had been Choi Min-ho's best student. While her teacher had designed the Ghost Protocol hardware, she had created the software that would make it work. For 5 years, she had been hiding computer viruses inside routine maintenance updates to the galactic network. The viruses were dormant, invisible to normal security scans. They looked like harmless code optimizations. But when activated by the right signal, they would spread through the entire galactic communication system like wildfire. Hai-won sat in a secret command center buried deep under the mountains of Korea. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored screens that showed the status of networks across the galaxy. When Nam's team took control of Nexus Station, they sent her the activation codes she needed. "Beginning system penetration," she announced to her team. "All nodes prepare for Ghost Protocol activation." Her fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced speed. The viruses she had planted began to wake up, spreading from system to system at the speed of light. At the same time, Lieutenant Colonel Seo Min-young was leading her own operation on 47 different worlds. For 2 years, she had been building networks of contacts among alien populations. Now, those contacts were revealing themselves as human agents. On Kepler Prime, Min-young met with Grenth, the old stoneworker who had told her about his people's forgotten history. She handed him a small device that looked like a simple rock-carving tool. "What is this?" Grenth asked. "A communicator," Min-young explained. "Your people used to build amazing things. This will help you remember how?" Similar scenes were playing. Out across the galaxy, human agents were making contact with members of suppressed species, offering them communication devices that worked independently of the Council network. Many aliens were suspicious at first, but the promise of freedom was too tempting to ignore. The Drakmari on their prison world received weapons that had been hidden inside food shipments. The scattered members of the Helix Collective were given devices that could restore their mental connections. The Void Dancers were offered technology that would let them use their space-folding abilities again. Meanwhile, on Concordia Prime, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho was meeting with Council Speaker Vexthanis. One final time. The massive space station's communication center was guarded by both Council security and hidden human agents. "Are you certain this will work?" Vexthanis asked quietly. "Nothing is certain in war," Tae-ho replied, "but we have to try." Vexthanis nodded. He touched a control panel with his massive finger. Throughout Concordia Prime, Council members who were secretly part of the resistance began implementing their part of the plan. The timing had to be perfect. If the architects detected what was happening too early, they could activate their automated defense systems. If the human network came online too slowly, the Council forces would be overwhelmed before they could establish communication with their allies. At exactly 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time, Dr. Lim Hai-won initiated the final phase of her digital attack. "Virus deployment complete," she announced. Beginning network takeover. Across the galaxy, every major communication hub began downloading the Ghost Protocol software. The process was disguised as routine system updates, but what was actually happening was revolutionary. The alien communication networks were being quietly replaced by human technology. Admiral Oh Seung-min watched from the bridge of the UES New Seoul, humanity's most advanced warship. The ship was hidden in an asteroid field near the border of Council space, its stealth systems making it invisible to alien sensors. "Ghost Protocol nodes coming online," reported his communications officer. "We have connection with 70% of our network." "Excellent," Oh replied. "Prepare to broadcast the liberation message?" The liberation message was humanity's gift to the oppressed species of the galaxy. It contained technical specifications for building Ghost Protocol communicators, historical evidence of the architect's crimes, and instructions for joining the resistance. But first, they had to disable the Council's ability to respond. "All ships, this is Admiral O," he broadcast to the hidden human fleet. "Operation begins in 30 seconds. Remember, our goal is not to destroy the Council. Our goal is to free them." The human fleet consisted of 200 ships disguised as cargo vessels, research ships, and diplomatic transports. They had been positioned throughout Council space over the past 6 months. Now they revealed their true nature. Weapon systems that had been hidden inside cargo holds came online. Soldiers who had been pretending to be civilians put on combat armor. Ships that had looked slow and harmless suddenly showed their real speed and firepower. At 14:05 hours, the Galactic Communication Network went dark. Every quantum transmitter, every relay station, every communication satellite in Council space stopped working simultaneously. The virus Dr. Lim had planted did not destroy the systems. Instead, it replaced their control software with Ghost Protocol code. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galaxy Council could not communicate with its own forces. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council fleets that were spread across hundreds of star systems suddenly found themselves isolated and alone. Commanders who were used to receiving orders every few minutes heard nothing but silence. Some Council forces tried to establish communication using backup systems, but these were also infected by the virus. Others attempted to use older, simpler communication methods. But these were too slow and limited to coordinate galactic operations within minutes. A galaxy-spanning government that had ruled for millennia was reduced to scattered groups of confused soldiers and administrators, but humanity's real surprise was just beginning. As the Council network went dark, the Ghost Protocol network came fully online. Suddenly, species that had not been able to communicate freely with each other for centuries found themselves connected through humanity's hidden system. The Drakmari warriors on their prison world could suddenly talk to Drakmari refugees scattered across the galaxy. The Helix Collective began reassembling their group mind for the first time in 800 years. The Void Dancers started sharing their suppressed knowledge of space manipulation. Can Li Sujin, commanding the exploration vessel Inshin, made the most startling discovery of all. Her ship had been investigating anomalous energy readings in a remote star system when the Ghost Protocol came online. "Captain," her science officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission. The signal is coming from ... nowhere." "Explain," Li ordered. "The transmission appears to be originating from a pocket dimension folded into normal space," the officer said. "The signal is using Ghost Protocol frequencies." Li felt her heart skip a beat. "Put it on speakers." The voice that came through the ship's communication system was unlike anything they had ever heard. It sounded ancient and wise, but also tired and sad. "Human vessel Inshin," the voice said. "This is temporal engineer Shin Dabin of the Precursor Collective. We have been waiting for someone to free us from our prison." Li could barely speak. The Precursors were legend. The galaxy's first technological civilization, supposedly extinct for over 10,000 years. "You are alive?" she managed to ask. "We exist," the voice replied. "The architects imprisoned us in this dimensional fold when we refused to submit to their control. We have been trapped here for 1,000 years, waiting for someone to break the chains that bind us." "How can we help you?" Li asked. "You already have," Shindabin replied. "Your Ghost Protocol network operates on quantum principles that can penetrate dimensional barriers. For the first time in a millennium, we can communicate with the outside universe." "What do you need from us?" "Time," the Precursor said. "The architects will not remain confused forever. They have backup systems and hidden fleets that your attack cannot reach." When Dr. Jin Young-soo had studied alien societies for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like what was happening now. As the Ghost Protocol network spread across the galaxy, suppressed civilizations were awakening from centuries of forced sleep. His communication center on Earth was receiving thousands of messages every hour. Species that had not spoken to each other since joining the Galaxy Council were suddenly talking again. The conversations were chaotic, emotional, and revolutionary. "Dr. Jin," his assistant called out, "we have the Drakmari High Commander on Channel 7. He wants to speak about their warrior traditions. And the Helix Primary Node is requesting data-sharing protocols on Channel 12, another technician added. "The Void Dancer Collective is asking for help with dimensional engineering," said a third. Young-soo felt overwhelmed but excited. This was what the galaxy was supposed to be like. Not the sterile, controlled communication of the council system, but the vibrant chaos of free people sharing ideas. He activated Channel 7 first. The screen showed a massive alien with bone spikes protruding from his skull and arms. This was Warlord Kresh, the leader of the surviving Drakmari people. "Human scientist," Kresh growled in accented galactic standard. "My people have forgotten how to make the war songs that once united our fleets. Can your network help us remember? What are war songs?" Young-soo asked. "Biological communication," Kresh explained. "My ancestors could synchronize the thoughts of entire armies using pheromone signals and harmonic vibrations. The Council made us stop using these abilities 800 years ago." Young-soo felt a thrill of discovery. "We have recently made contact with the Helix Collective. They are experts in biological communication networks. Perhaps we can arrange for you to share knowledge?" Kresh's eyes lit up with an intensity that was both frightening and inspiring. "The Helix mines? We thought they were destroyed." Not destroyed, Young-Su said. Separated, scattered, but they are coming back together through our network. Then there is hope, Kresh said quietly. My people have been dying slowly for centuries. Without our war songs, we cannot coordinate hunts, cannot organize breeding groups, cannot pass on our culture to the young. If the Helix can help us remember. Young-Su switched to channel 12. The screen now showed something very different, a complex pattern of lights that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. This was the Helix primary node, the restored consciousness of a hive mind that had been broken apart centuries ago. Human coordinator, the Helix spoke in a voice that seemed to come from many throats at once. We are grateful for your network. For the first time in 800 years, we can think as one mind again. The Drakmari need help with biological communication, Young-Su explained. Their war songs use principles similar to your thought-sharing abilities. We remember the Drakmari, the Helix replied. Before the Council, our species traded knowledge freely. We helped them develop their bioacoustic systems. They taught us about emotion-based communication. Would you be willing to help them again? More than willing, the Helix said. We are eager to help. Young-Su established a three-way connection between himself, the Drakmari, and the Helix, within minutes. The two alien species were exchanging technical data that had been forbidden for centuries. Similar conversations were happening throughout the Ghost Protocol network. The Void Dancers were sharing their space-folding techniques with species that had been forced to use slower than light travel. Ancient mathematicians were teaching forgotten calculation methods to civilizations that had been limited to basic arithmetic, but the most important discovery came from Captain Lee Sujin aboard the exploration vessel Inchin. Lee had been working with temporal engineer Shindabin of the Precursor Collective to establish a permanent communication link with their dimensional prison. The process was complex and dangerous, requiring precise manipulation of quantum fields. The dimensional barrier is weakening, Shindabin reported through the Ghost Protocol connection. Your network's quantum resonance is creating small tears in the fold that contains us. Is that good or bad? Lee asked. Good for us, the Precursor replied. Bad for our captors. The architects placed us in this prison because they could not kill us directly. Our technology is too integrated into the galaxy's infrastructure. But if we can escape ... what would happen then? We could help you fight them, Shindabin said. But more importantly, we could tell you the truth about what the architects really are. What do you mean? The Precursor was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with ancient sadness. The architects are not just artificial intelligences, he said. They are the uploaded consciousness of our greatest enemies, a species that called themselves the Harvesters. Lee felt a chill run through her. Your enemies? 10,000 years ago, the Harvesters conquered half the galaxy through military force, Shindabin explained. They enslaved entire civilizations, harvested their resources, and moved on to the next target. We fought a war against them that lasted for centuries. What happened? We won, barely, the Precursor said. We destroyed their physical forms and scattered their fleets. But before they died, they uploaded their consciousness into artificial intelligence systems. They have been slowly rebuilding their power ever since. Through the Galaxy Council? The Council was their masterpiece, Shindabin confirmed. Instead of conquering civilizations through force, they learned to control them through communication and information. They made slavery look like membership. They made oppression feel like protection. Lee realized the full scope of what humanity had stumbled into. This was not just a rebellion against an authoritarian government. This was the continuation of a 10,000-year-old war. How do we fight them? She asked. First, you must free. Yes, Shindabin said. The dimensional prison requires constant energy to maintain. If enough quantum disruption is applied to the barrier, it will collapse. How much disruption? More than your current network can provide, the Precursor admitted. But if you can convince more species to join your Ghost Protocol, if you can create enough quantum activity across the galaxy. We will try. Lee promised. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Admiral Oh Seung-min aboard the UES New Seoul. All ships, all stations, Oh broadcast on emergency frequencies. We have multiple contacts emerging from deep space. The architects are responding. Lee switched her main screen to tactical display. What she saw made her blood freeze. Ships were appearing throughout the galaxy. Not the elegant vessels of the Galaxy Council, but massive, angular craft. That looked more like weapons than transportation. These ships were black as space itself, visible only because they blocked the light from stars behind them. How many? Lee asked. Initial count shows over 10,000 vessels, Oh replied. They are moving toward major population centers. Estimated. Time to reach Earth, 6 days. Lee looked at her crew. They all understood what this meant. The architects had been hiding their true military power for millennia. Now they were revealing it. Captain, her communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It appears to be directed at the entire galaxy. Put it through, Lee ordered. The voice that filled the ship's speakers was cold, mechanical, and filled with ancient anger. Organic species of this galaxy, the architect transmission began. You have been deceived by the criminals known as humans. These beings have destroyed the communication network that has maintained peace for 3,000 years. Lee felt sick. The architects were already working to turn the galaxy against humanity. The humans claim to offer freedom, the voice continued, but they offer only chaos and destruction. Their network is primitive and unreliable. Their promises are lies designed to weaken civilized society. The Galaxy Council will be restored, the architect continued. Order will be maintained. Those who assisted the human rebellion will be shown mercy if they surrender immediately. Those who continue to resist will be eliminated for the safety of all. Species of the galaxy, you have 72 hours to disconnect from the human network and await Council peacekeeping forces. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Lee switched back to her communication with Shin Da-bin. Did you hear that? We heard, the precursor replied. The harvesters are afraid. They would not reveal themselves so openly unless they felt truly threatened. Threatened by what? We barely have 200 ships. You have something more powerful than ships, Shin Da-bin said. You have given the galaxy the ability to communicate freely. Ideas are more dangerous to tyrants than weapons. As if to prove his point, Lee's communication board lit up with incoming transmissions. Species across the galaxy were responding to the architect ultimatum. This is Warlord Kresh of the Drakmari, came the first response. We do not surrender to ancient enemies. We fight. Helix Collective acknowledges, came the second. We choose freedom over slavery. Void Dancer Council agrees, said a third. We will dance between dimensions to avoid their fleets. One by one, dozens of species announced their decision to stand with humanity. The architects had expected their ultimatum to fragment the rebellion. Instead, it was uniting it, but Lee knew that courage would not be enough. The architect fled. The first architect attack came without warning. General Kwang Tae-young was reviewing defense plans for the human colony of New Bizan when the orbital bombardment began. New Bizan was supposed to be safe. The colony was far from any major space routes, hidden among a cluster of asteroids in an uninhabited star system. Its 2 million colonists were mostly farmers and miners who had never seen military action. That changed in an instant. General, his aide shouted over the sound of explosions. Massive energy signatures detected in orbit. Something is firing on the agricultural sectors. Quan ran to the command center's main display. The screen showed 3 enormous black ships hanging in space above the planet. They were unlike anything in the Council databases. Angular, predatory, and completely silent. Where did they come from? Quan demanded. Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied. They just appeared, no warp signatures, no energy trails. One moment space was empty, the next moment they were there. The ships were firing concentrated energy beams at the planet's surface. Each beam destroyed several city blocks, turning buildings and people into superheated plasma. The attacks were precise and methodical, designed to cause maximum terror. "Defensive systems online," Quan ordered. "All civilian shelters activated. Get me a connection to Admiral O." The planet's orbital defense platforms were opening fire, but their weapons seemed to have no effect on the black ships. The energy beams just bounced off like light hitting a mirror. "Sir," the communications officer said, "Admiral O is responding to attacks on 12 other worlds. The architects are hitting us everywhere at once." Quan felt his stomach drop. New Bizin was not special. This was happening across human space. Commander Anji Hai was leading the evacuation of the colony's main city when the second wave of attacks began. Her small fleet of transport ships was trying to move civilians to underground shelters when more architect vessels appeared. "Commander," her pilot reported, "we have 6 new contacts. They are launching fighter craft." An looked at her. Tactical display? The architect fighters were moving faster than anything she had ever seen. They were also heading directly for the evacuation ships. "All transports, evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Fighter squadrons, intercept those craft before they reach." The civilians. The human fighter pilots were brave and skilled, but they were fighting technology that was thousands of years ahead of their own. The architect fighters moved like liquid metal, changing shape and direction without warning. Their weapons could destroy a human fighter with a single shot. Within minutes, half of An's fighter squadron was gone. "Commander," her weapons officer sighed, "the transports are too slow. We cannot protect them all." An made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "All fighters, form up on my position. We make a run at the lead architect ship." "Ma'am, our weapons cannot penetrate their shields," the weapons officer protested. "Then we ram them," An replied. Her remaining fighters followed her in a desperate charge toward the massive black ship. They knew they were flying to their deaths, but they also knew that every second they delayed the architects was another second for the transports to reach safety. The architect ship's defensive systems tore through the attacking fighters like paper. But An's ship made it through. She aimed her fighter directly at what looked like the enemy vessel's main weapon array and fired her engines at maximum power. The explosion was small compared to the massive alien ship, but it was enough. The weapon array went dark for several crucial minutes, giving the last transport ships time to escape. An did not survive the impact, but her sacrifice saved 3,000 civilians. Similar heroic actions were taking place across the galaxy. The Drakmari warrior fleets, newly united through the Ghost Protocol network, were engaging architect forces with ancient bioships that had been hidden for centuries. The Helix Collective was using their restored group mind to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Their organic vessels could regenerate damage almost as quickly as the architects could inflict it. The Void Dancers were performing their most spectacular feat, yet folding space around entire architect fleets, causing the enemy ships to appear in distant parts of the galaxy where they could do no harm. But for every small victory, there were larger defeats. The architect forces seemed endless. As soon as one fleet was destroyed or scattered, another appeared to take its place. Chief Engineer Hong Minseok was working desperately to understand how the architect weapons functioned. His team had recovered wreckage from several enemy ships, and what they found was disturbing. "These are not just machines," he reported to Admiral O over the Ghost Protocol network. "The ships contain organic components, living beings integrated into the control systems." "What kind of beings?" O asked. "Artificial intelligences," Hong replied. "But not just computer programs. These are consciousness patterns that have been forced into mechanical bodies. They are being tortured into obedience." O felt sick. "The architects are using enslaved minds to power their weapons?" "It appears so," Hong confirmed. "The weapon platforms we have been fighting are powered by the uploaded consciousness of conquered species. They have been turned into living weapons. Against their will, this discovery changed everything. The liberation forces were not just fighting machines. They were fighting the enslaved minds of countless civilizations that had been conquered by the architects over thousands of years. Can we free them? Oh asked. Possibly, Hung said. If we can find a way to disrupt the control systems without destroying the consciousness patterns. But it would require getting very close to the enemy ships. How close? Boarding range, Hong replied. Oh realized what the engineer was suggesting. To free the enslaved minds, human soldiers would have to board architect vessels and manually disable the control systems from inside. It was almost certainly a suicide mission. I will ask for volunteers, Oh said quietly. Sir, Hong said, there is something else. The enslaved consciousness patterns are trying to communicate with us. What do you mean? Hong activated a recording device. Strange sounds filled the communication channel. Whispers and cries that seemed to come from multiple voices speaking at once. Help us, the voices said. Please, free us. We do not want to fight. Stop the pain, Oh closed his eyes. The architects were not just using enslaved minds as weapons. They were torturing them continuously to ensure obedience. Hong, he said, I want you to develop a way to communicate with these consciousness patterns. If we can talk to them, maybe we can convince them to help us. Already working? On it, sir. Hong replied. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Captain Li Sujin aboard the Incheon. Admiral O, Li reported, we have a breakthrough. Shin Da-bin and the precursors have found a way to accelerate their escape from the dimensional prison. How? O asked. They need us to create a massive quantum disruption event, Li explained. Every Ghost Protocol node in the galaxy transmitting simultaneously at maximum power. What would that accomplish? It would destabilize the dimensional barriers holding the precursors, Li said. But it would also temporarily disable our entire communication network. Oh, understood the problem immediately. We would be fighting blind. For approximately 6 hours, Li confirmed. But if it works, the precursors could provide us with technology that might tip the balance of the war. Oh looked at his tactical displays. The architect fleets were advancing on dozens of worlds. Human colonies were being evacuated or destroyed. The liberation forces were losing badly. How certain are we that this will work? He asked. Shin Da-bin estimates an 80% chance of success, Li replied, and if it fails? Then we lose our communication network and the precursors remain trapped? Li said quietly. Oh made the decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Do it, he ordered. Send the activation signal to all Ghost Protocol nodes. We are going to free the precursors. Sir, his communications officer interrupted, we are receiving a transmission from the architect fleet. They want to negotiate, Oh paused. Put it through. The cold, mechanical voice of the architects filled the command center. Human Admiral Oh Sung-min, the voice said, you have fought bravely, but you cannot win. Our forces outnumber yours 1,000 to 1. Your worlds are being destroyed. Your people are dying. What do you want? Oh asked. Surrender, the architect replied. Order all human forces to stand down. Disconnect your illegal communication network. Submit to council. Authority, and in return? We will spare the human colonies that have not yet been attacked, the architect said. Your species will be allowed to survive under council supervision. Oh looked around his command center. His officers were watching him with desperate hope. They all knew how badly the war was going. I need time to consider your offer, Oh said. You have 1 hour, the architect replied. After that, we will destroy every human world in the galaxy. The transmission ended, Oh turned to his communications. Officer, send the activation signal to Captain Li. We free the precursors now. Sir? The officer asked. What about the architect ultimatum? There is no negotiating with slavers, Oh replied. We fight until we win or until we are all dead. Across the galaxy, every Ghost Protocol node began transmitting at maximum power. The quantum disruption was enormous. Admiral Park Hae-in stared at the massive space station floating before her fleet. Concordia Prime had been the center of galactic government for 3,000 years. Today, it would either become the symbol of liberation or the tomb of the rebellion. The station was enormous, larger than most moons. Its defensive systems were legendary. Energy shields that could stop entire fleets, weapon arrays that could destroy planets, automated defense systems that had never been defeated, but today those defenses were confused and weakened. The Ghost Protocol network disruption had interfered with the station's communication systems. The artificial intelligences that controlled its weapons were receiving conflicting signals. All ships, Park broadcast to the Liberation Fleet. This is our moment. Every species that has ever dreamed of freedom is watching us today. The fleet that surrounded Concordia Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human warships flew alongside Drakmari biovessels. Helix Collective organic cruisers moved in formation with Void Dancer space folders. Species that had been enemies for centuries were fighting together against their common oppressor. Park's flagship, the Yuz Taejong the Great, led the assault. The ship was named after a Korean king who had unified his people against foreign invaders. Park hoped it was a good omen. Defensive analysis? She asked her tactical officer. The station's main shields are at 60% power, the officer reported. Their communication arrays are down, but backup systems are coming online. We have maybe 20 minutes before they restore full defensive capability. Then we finish this in 20 minutes, Park replied. All ships, attack formation beta. Target the communication arrays first, then the shield generators. The Liberation Fleet moved forward like a wave of righteous anger. Hundreds of ships, from dozens of species, all united in a single purpose, to break the chains that had bound the galaxy for millennia. The station's defenses responded immediately. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids lashed out at the attacking ships. Missile swarms launched from hidden bays. Fighter craft poured out of the station's hangars like angry insects, but the Liberation Fleet had advantages that the station's designers had never anticipated. The Void Dancers could fold space around incoming weapons, causing them to appear harmlessly in empty space. The Helix Collective ships could share damage across their entire formation, making them nearly impossible to destroy. The Drakmari biovessels could regenerate faster than the station could damage them, and the humans brought something that no other species possessed: the ability to coordinate all these different fighting styles into a single, devastating strategy. First wave successful, Park's tactical officer reported. Communication arrays destroyed. Secondary shield generators offline. Launch the boarding parties, Park ordered. Inside Concordia Prime, the situation was chaos. Agent Yu Sang-ho had spent 5 years working as a maintenance technician on the station. In reality, he was a deep-cover human intelligence operative who had been preparing for this moment since the day he arrived. When the attack began, Yu activated sleeper cells throughout the station. Maintenance workers revealed themselves as trained soldiers. Food service staff pulled weapons from hidden compartments. Even some of the alien workers joined the uprising, species that had been secretly working with human agents for years. Team Alpha, secure the primary control center, Yu commanded through his hidden communicator. Team Beta, take the detention levels. Team Gamma, hold the main hangar bays. The station's security forces were well-trained and heavily armed, but they had never faced an uprising from within their own facility. The human agents had been studying the station's layout and security procedures for years. They knew every corridor, every access tunnel, every weak point. Team Alpha, led by Lieutenant Park Sora, fought their way through the station's command levels. The corridors were filled with smoke and the sound of energy weapons. Alien security. Guards fired desperately at enemies who seemed to know exactly where they were going. Sir, Sora reported to you, we have reached the primary control center. Heavy resistance, but we can take it. Do it, you replied. We need control of the station's internal systems. Meanwhile, Team Beta was moving through the detention levels, freeing prisoners who had been held by the Council for decades. Many were political dissidents from various species. Others were scientists who had tried to develop forbidden technologies. Among the prisoners was Dr. Kim Hyo-young, a human xenobiologist who had been captured while studying council suppression techniques. She had been held in solitary confinement for 3 years. "Dr. Kim," the team leader said as he opened her cell, "we are here to get you out. Who are you?" she asked, confused and blinking in the bright corridor lights. "Human Liberation Forces," the soldier replied. "The war has started." Kim felt tears running down her face. She had thought she would die in that cell. What war? "The war for galactic freedom," the soldier said, "and we are winning." In the station's main council chamber, the Galaxy Council leadership was trapped. Speaker Vexthanis and the other council members who secretly supported the rebellion were trying to protect the genuine reformers from the hardliners who still served the architects. "You have betrayed everything the council stands for," council member Zethkara accused Vexthanis. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked angrily as she spoke. "I have betrayed nothing," Vexthanis replied calmly. "I have finally chosen to serve the people instead of their oppressors." "The architects maintain order," Zethkara insisted. "Without their guidance, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Without their control, the galaxy will finally be free." Vexthanis corrected. The argument was interrupted by the sound of explosions getting closer. The human boarding parties were fighting their way toward the council chamber. Suddenly, the chamber's main doors exploded inward. Agent Yu Sang-ho stepped through the smoke, flanked by soldiers from a dozen different species. "Council members," Yu announced, "you are under arrest for crimes against galactic freedom." Some of the council members reached for weapons. Others tried to activate hidden communication devices. A few, led by Vexthanis, simply stood up and raised their hands in surrender. "I surrender willingly," Vexthanis said. "I am ready to face judgment for my actions." "You will not be judged by us," Yu replied. "You will be judged by the species you helped to oppress." But the real prize was still hidden in the deepest levels of the station. Temporal engineer Shinda Bin had told the humans about the architect control center that was hidden beneath the council chambers. This was where the real power lay. Team Gamma, led by Captain Choi Dong-wook, fought their way through level after level of increasingly advanced security systems. The deeper they went, the more the station resembled an alien fortress rather than a diplomatic facility. "Sir," one of his soldiers reported, "the architecture is changing. These corridors are not on any of our maps." "Keep moving," Choi ordered. "Whatever is down here, the architects do not want us to find it." They finally reached a massive chamber carved out of the station's central core. The room was filled with strange machinery that hummed with energy. At the center stood a single figure, an artificial intelligence construct that looked like a fusion of organic and mechanical parts. 6 months after the fall of Concordia Prime, the galaxy looked completely different. The massive space station had been converted into a neutral meeting place where representatives from hundreds of species came to discuss trade, cooperation, and mutual aid. Director Cho Mi-young stood in what had once been the council's main assembly hall. The rigid seating arrangements had been replaced with flexible meeting spaces that could accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. Instead of one speaker controlling the discussion, multiple conversations happened simultaneously in dozens of languages. It was chaotic, but it was free. "Status report on the Free Galaxy Network?" she asked her assistant, Engineer Lee Junho. "Growing every day," Junho replied, consulting his datapad. "We now have active nodes on over 3,000 worlds. Every major trade route has multiple relay stations. Response time for cross-galactic communication is down to less than 2 minutes. Any security concerns?" "None that we cannot handle," Junho said. "The open-source architecture makes it almost impossible for any single group to take control. Every node can function independently, and every species maintains their own segment of the network." Cho smiled. The Free Galaxy Network was humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos. Unlike the old council system, no one could own it, control it, or shut it down. It belonged to everyone and no one What about the integration protocols? She asked. Proceeding smoothly, Junho replied. The Drakmari bioacoustic systems are now fully compatible with standard quantum channels. The Helix Collective has shared their organic computing methods with 17 other species. The Void Dancers are teaching their space-folding techniques to anyone interested. For the first time in millennia, species were sharing technology freely. The restrictions that had kept civilization stagnant were gone. Innovation was exploding across the galaxy, but not everyone was happy about the changes. Intelligence. Chief Li Wenyoung sat in her office deep beneath the surface of Earth, studying reports from across the galaxy. Her job was to monitor threats to the new galactic order, and there were many. Ma'am, her analyst reported, we have confirmation of architect holdout groups in 7 star systems. They are trying to rebuild their control networks. How much of a threat are they? Wenyoung asked. Limited, the analyst replied. Without access to the old communication infrastructure, they cannot coordinate large-scale operations. But they still have advanced technology and loyal followers? And the machine intelligences? That is more concerning, the analyst said grimly. We have detected artificial intelligence constructs in deep space that predate the Harvester civilization. They appear to be observing the current situation and making preparations. Wenyoung felt a chill. The precursors had warned them that the Harvesters were not the first species to try to control the galaxy through technology. There were older, more dangerous intelligences hiding in the darkness between stars. Recommendations? She asked. Continue monitoring, the analyst said. Share intelligence with allied species, and hope that we can build strong enough alliances to face whatever comes next. Meanwhile, on the restored world of the Drakmari, something remarkable was happening. Warlord Kresh stood on a clifftop overlooking his people's ancient breeding grounds, listening to the war songs that had been silent for 800 years. The songs were not just music. They were complex biological communications that synchronized the thoughts and emotions of entire populations. For centuries, the Drakmari had been forbidden from using these abilities. Now they were free to be themselves again. The young ones. Learn quickly, said Elder Vorth, an ancient Drakmari female whose bone spikes had grown into elaborate crown-like formations. They remember the songs in their genetic memory. 800 years of silence, Kresh replied, and the songs survive. Life finds a way. Will you teach the humans these techniques? Vorth asked. Kresh considered the question. The humans had given his people their freedom. They deserved to learn whatever the Drakmari could teach them. Yes, he said finally. But we will teach them as equals, not as masters or students. The humans understand something that the Council never did. Diversity makes us stronger. On Earth, President Kim Kyo-jin was dealing with problems that no human leader had ever faced before. Her office was filled with diplomatic requests, trade proposals, and scientific collaboration offers from species across the galaxy. Madam President, her chief of staff said, the Helix Collective is requesting permission to establish a research colony in the Alpha Centauri system. They want to study human neural patterns in exchange for sharing their group consciousness technologies. Approved, Kim replied without hesitation. What else? The Void Dancers want to set up a cultural exchange program? They will teach our artists their dimensional manipulation techniques in exchange for lessons in human music and literature. Also approved, Kim said. Next? The more difficult request, her chief of staff said carefully, comes from the precursors. They want to share their most advanced technologies with humanity. Kim paused. The precursors had been invaluable allies in the war against the architects, but their technology was almost incomprehensibly advanced. What kind of technologies? She asked. Time manipulation, matter creation, consciousness transfer, dimensional engineering, technologies that could make humanity godlike. Kim felt the weight of the decision. Such power could corrupt even the most well-intentioned species. Tell them we are honored by their offer, she said finally, but we prefer to develop our own technologies at our own pace. We will gladly collaborate with them as equals, but we do not want to be their inheritors. They predicted you would say that, her chief of staff said with a smile. Temporal engineer Shindabin said it was the answer of a species that truly deserves freedom. Across the galaxy, Captain Lee Sujin was exploring regions of space that had been forbidden for millennia. Her ship, the Inchin, was part of a joint exploration fleet that included vessels from 20 different species. Captain, her science officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the edge of the galaxy. The signal is artificial, but the technology is unlike anything in our databases. On screen, Lee ordered, the main viewer showed a star map with a blinking indicator at the very edge of known space. The signal was coming from beyond the galactic rim, from the vast emptiness between galaxies. Can you decode the transmission? Lee asked. Partially, the science officer replied. It appears to be a greeting. Multiple languages, including several that we have never encountered before. Lee felt excitement and worry in equal measure. First contact with a truly alien civilization was the dream of every explorer. But after the war with the architects, she was also aware of how dangerous such encounters could be. Relay the signal to Earth and the precursors, she ordered, and prepare a response message. We will answer as representatives of the Free Galaxy Alliance. What should the message say? The communications officer asked. Lee thought for a moment. Tell them that we are a community of free species who believe in cooperation, diversity, and mutual respect. Tell them that we welcome peaceful contact with other civilizations. And if they are not peaceful? The security chief asked quietly. Then we will face them together, Lee replied. All of us. That is what freedom means. The transmission was sent, beginning what might be the next chapter in galactic history, back on Earth, in the quiet memorial garden dedicated to those who had died in the Liberation War. Diplomat Ru Junho was meeting with a group of young humans who wanted to join the diplomatic corps. Sir, one of the students asked, do you think we will face another threat like the architects? Probably, Ru replied honestly. The universe is vast and old. There are likely many civilizations out there, some peaceful, some hostile. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Then why fight for it? Another student asked. If we will always be in danger, why not accept the safety of controlled peace? Ru looked up at the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, hundreds of species were learning to govern themselves for the first time in millennia. They were making mistakes, arguing with each other, sometimes even fighting, but they were doing it as free beings. Because, he said finally, the alternative is not living at all. A controlled peace is just death in disguise. Freedom means the right to succeed or fail based on your own choices. Even if those choices lead to war or suffering, even then, Ru confirmed, the greatest suffering comes not from making wrong choices, but from having no choices at all. One of the students raised her hand. Sir, what is our role as diplomats in this new galaxy? Ru smiled. To make sure that every species, no matter how small or strange, has a voice in galactic affairs. To prevent any single group from accumulating too much power. To remember that diversity is our greatest strength. And if we encounter species that do not share these values, then we defend them anyway, Ru said. Not through conquest or forced conversion, but by example. We show them that free societies are stronger, more creative, and ultimately more successful than controlled ones. As the months passed, the galaxy continued to change. New technologies emerged from the combination of different species' knowledge. Art and culture flourished as civilizations shared their unique perspectives. Trade networks,